Starting to record, maybe. Thinking about it. I think I need to do a shutdown on my Mac. I haven't done it in a couple days, and I think it's asking me to do that. All right, let's hit refresh. I was muted, so let's start again. Thank you. This is Choose Your Own Adventure, our mini webinar today on Google Slides. As always, ask questions at any point. Thank you for letting me know that I was muted. That doesn't really help you at all, or me. Here we go. We're going to share my screen. And then we'll go over to the presentation. All right, so we are going to be creating Choose Your Own Adventures with Google Slides. So you probably know how to add a link in Google Slides. You probably have done that before, but you might not have noticed that there's another way that you can link within Google Slides, that you can allow slides to link to other slides within the slide deck. So then you can create these Choose Your Own Adventure activities, and your students can create these creative ways to look at things. You can also do this for exploratory kind of activities. So let's say you were looking at parts of a castle, let's say, and you wanted the students to explore different parts. You can have different links based on where you put different spots on the castle for them to go to the page that talks about that spot. And it can be built right within Google Slides without you having to send links anywhere else besides right within that Google slide deck. So let me show you how that kind of works. So Choose Your Own Adventures, we all remember these books, right? I mean, I know I read a ton of them. They were always this kind of yellowed, old looking, I think, from the day you got them. But you always had all of these different adventure stories that had these different endings. Now, creating one that has 40 possible endings is a very large slide deck, but you certainly can do it. It's just a matter of really good planning to make it happen. When you first start these, I highly recommend that you start small, meaning you only maybe have 2 or 3 different choices, that it kind of links back and eventually gets to an ending or 2 based on how you're doing this. But as you get more comfortable with them and you're good at the branching, you can certainly link out to other parts or make it a little bit larger. So a simple slide setup, all right? You see it right here. It says, where do you want to go? And then I have the why and the what, or the how and the who. And depending on where I click will depend on where I go within the slide deck. So I'm going to go over both of these with you anyway, but I wanted you to show you just basically how that would work. So if I hit the why and the what, it took me to slide 4. If I go back to slide 3 and I click the how and the who, it took me to slide 6. So you can see that based on how you set it up, it will go to different slides. All right, but we're going to do all of it so that you can see that. So why do we do these kind of Google Slides? Why do we do Choose Your Own Adventures? First of all, it's fun. We always liked them. When we were kids, it's a fun activity for your students to create and to do. I will guarantee that if you have your students create a Choose Your Own Adventure, at some point in the story, somebody dies. They love to say, oh, you ate the strawberry ice cream, now you die. That tends to be the way they set them up. But they're fun to do, and they're creative for students to kind of show what they know and to be creative in their storytelling. One of the things I like to mention is computer science and digital fluency standards are coming from New York State. We know that we're getting these new standards. And one of the big sections in computer science is computational thinking. And they use the word algorithm probably 150 times within the standards. And doing Choose Your Own Adventure stories follows the if-then logic, which is a computational thinking logic. If something happens, then this happens, right? So if you're doing it with coding, if you get to a spot where you can turn right, the then would be to turn right. And when you're setting up this type of branching activity in Google Slides, you're really doing computational thinking, which is a great way for you to teach it without having to say, well, I don't know computer science, but you do know storytelling. You do know that you can follow a pattern. And then you're able to do these kind of activities and still get the kids to do the computer science standards that need to be done. So this is a great way to kind of hit those standards in a way you may not have thought of. I already mentioned storytelling, anything with with this kind of thing, when you're doing storytelling, you're creating a storyboard, you're talking about the process of what happens in the beginning, that rising action, the climax, that falling action, how everything kind of comes together. You still want to follow that pattern when you're doing good quality storytelling within this kind of setup. You can do this for quiz prep, where the students link out based on the correct answer or the wrong answer. You can create Jeopardy boards once you have this kind of linking idea to go back and forth between the slides. You can do it for vocabulary review, matching pictures. There's so many different ways that you can use choose your own adventure type of activities where you have this linking within your slide deck. Digital fluency, again, you're teaching students to use some of the other features in Google Slides that we're going to play with. And then executive function is a big part of the why of why you want to be able to do this, or why you might want your students to create with this. The what. So I already mentioned branching. It does give them your students some choice. So let's say you have 2 books you want your students to choose between to read. You can take them through this kind of thing and then tell them, hey, based on the way you answered, you should read this book, or you should do this activity, or this is the best reading response you should do. So you're giving your students some choice based on how this works. If you were at my one for choice boards, your choice board could have be set up, instead of taking them out to links like we did it, we could have had it come to another slide that gives them directions on what to do within that actual choice board. So I'll show you how that happens. Again, you're linking to different parts of the slide. They are simple to create, but you have to have a plan. If you have a student that goes out and says, all right, I'm going to create it, and then just tries to do slide by slide, they're going to get lost, or their links are going to be wrong. You have to set up some sort of flow chart to understand which link you want to go where on how you tell your story. So you don't start in Google Slides, you start with your story, create the plan, and then build it. So there's a real big process that you want to do with these kind of activities. How do you do it? You have, again, plan out your story, you create that map, and then I'm going to show you how to use that link function in just a moment. But that's the key to making it work within your Google Slides, is to use that link function that links your presentation slides from one place to the other. When you do them, there's some big things that kind of help you out when you're creating these slides. The biggest one is to label your slides, even if you end up hiding the labels at the end. And how you label a slide is by giving it a title. As soon as you put it in the title box at the top, it creates a label for that. So if I hover over to where it says slide 7 here, anywhere that I've actually put a label, and I didn't on most of these, but if I have a label, it's going to keep it as the top, and it labels that one. It makes it easier for you to track which one is which. I'll show you how to do that, but pretty much you want to make sure that, like here, I had choose your own adventure at the top. This one I had tips and tricks, that you actually label those different ones. Otherwise, they're just going to come up as a slide number, and you don't know what's happening on those slides in between. Again, and I can't stress it enough, you have to plan it out first, and I'll show you what happens if you don't. I have like a dummy one that I play around with to kind of show when I do these kind of presentations, and I'll show you where you get stuck if you don't have something planned out. A little quick tip and trick, and I'll show you how this works, is if you want to link both an image and text, there's a way that you can do that by using a transparent shape over it. And I'll show you how to do that. And you want to keep, at least when you're first starting, you want to keep these pretty simple. So I'm actually going to come out of here for a minute. Actually, no, I'll go over here to the resources first. Let me show you some samples of what I'm talking about, so you kind of know what they are, how they look, how you kind of figure them out. And then we'll kind of go from there. So here's a sample template, found it on Twitter, but this person just threw it out there, so I'm going to grab it. Let me make sure there were no questions first before I go on to this. Can you guys see my screen?
This is Carissa. I figured it out.
Oh, okay.
Good. I'm separate screen for your screen.
First I'm muted, then you can't see me. It's gonna be it's a Tuesday. Well, good. I'm glad you can see me now, or see what's going on now. Okay. So this is an example of what one would look like. And I'm going to keep it in editing mode, not put it in presentation mode, so I can kind of see so you can kind of see how it goes through. So within the template, you see that it has the big box and then the 2 boxes. So this is a very basic layout for the stories, but see how it says A option 1, B option 1, C option 2, C option 1. So see how it's kind of breaks it down. So that way it kind of shows you where the different parts go as it's going through the story. All right. And then if I put this into present mode, this one, see how it says the different options in here? That's going to help out so you know where you have to go when you're branching your story. So if you're doing slide 8 and it's D option 2 story, I know that my next one has to go down to option 2, which would be slide 14, which is going to be helpful there. I heard a ding. I'm guessing somebody asked a question. Yeah, I'm going to give you a copy of this. Don't you worry. So you'll have access to the slide deck because this one really does help you understand like the process. There's other ones out there too, and I'm going to share some of those. If you don't know Matt Miller, he does a really nice job of explaining anything to do with Google. So Ditch That Textbook is his website. He's got a free learning course for online learning, but he writes these great articles about ways to use Google Slides. He actually has a downloadable a PDF of like 100 ways to use Google Slides. So I could have 100 different half hours on just the activities that he thought of, they're awesome. But this is the one on the choice stories in Google Slides, or choose your own adventures. So they talk about, like we talked about, the why, and you can use it for different things. I mentioned like the castle and doing parts and doing vocabulary. He adds in there that you can do it for historical figures or outcomes in a lab. Math could be different problems that you can do. It mentions, again, just like I did with the if-then logic, the conditional logic or computational thinking. And then he talks about how you plan it out. So here's another template. It might even be the same one, if I remember correctly. No, this is a different one. So this one kind of shows you another way you can set it up by doing this planning activity. And this is in Google Draw that he did this. So you have the event and the 2 choices, event and the 2 choices. So then you can go through and drag in what slide number each of these are. So it could be, this is slide 1. Then you might have from there, they go from slide 2 and 3. You see how I'm kind of setting it up as we're going through, and then each of those from that event goes out to the different slides. So you can kind of go through and figure out your planning for each of those parts. You can even add a text box next to it to say, this is going to be, the beginning of the story. And then from here, you might say this is choice A, choice B, and break it down that way. So these flowcharts really do help you as you're going through. So I wanted to make sure you had a copy of this article because he really walks you through a little bit. So this is kind of what it looks like on the other side, on the side once it's done. You have the story up top and which direction they're going to turn. And then from here, based on what they click, it's going to take them to different parts of the story. And then you can have students share their stories between them. So I gave you a copy of that one. Alice Keeler also has a whole thing on adventure stories where she takes you through a sample adventure about a ship, and it takes you through. And here what she did is ABC. So instead of boxes, she has her story kind of that way. Eric Kurtz does one similar. I'm actually going to open his up. So his sample is pretty in depth. So he's got this dragon quest. All right. And here's all the information that he gave here. If I go down to the slides, you can see he's got a ton of slides in here. He's got 91 slides on this deck. So this is a really in-depth one. I would not start with one this in-depth. But when you click to begin, it goes through the story of how it works. And then you click on begin the story. And then you're going to read the story. So here's his story about the king of Anagua. You hit continue, and then they're still building the story at the beginning here. And then he gets a choice. So you have the choice of get the peddler supplies or continue without supplies. You continue without supplies. And then, they steal from you and you're done. So, so that's the end of that story. So if you go back, you start again, and it builds from there. See how easy it is for me to kind of go through. This time I chose to take supplies. I picked a path, picked the underbrush, and you just continue on as things are going on. And at some point, the story ends, and you can see that it ended there. So you can go through and play around with this one and kind of see how he set it up. I have that as a resource for you on the slide deck. As far as a lesson, so let's say you were giving this to your students as a creative writing activity. This is a great slide deck that I found again on the internet, because that's where I find everything. But this is going to tell you a little bit about it. It's going to talk about that branching logic again. So this is a pretty in-depth one if you want to see this image. I would not recommend showing that to your students at the beginning. I would start with a very basic one like I showed you on that Google Draw one. But then they give you some information. They talk about how to make the choices. And then you go through the story, and then it'll explain how to do it, which I'm going to get to in just a moment. All right. And here is the lesson saying you need 500 words of text, 5 choices, pair of groups, and you decide how you want to do it. So there's that one. I'm giving you some other information too, a couple of videos to watch, a blog post to read, just so you have that there. But let's talk about how you build one. So I'm on this slide here. And at this point, I've put a title, right? And actually, this isn't even a title. This is I used word art there. And if you do that, if I'm in present, it doesn't show word art as your title. So I would suggest actually using the title on there. And what you do, let's say I want 2 choices from here to tell my story. I'm going to use the shape tool, and I'm going to click on the shapes, and I'm just going to grab 2 boxes. What I usually do is grab one box, and then I want the other one to be the same size. So I'm going to hit Shift Command, or Command rather, not Shift, or Control on your Chromebook. So Control D on your Chromebook, Command D on my Mac, and it duplicates it. So then I have 2 exactly the same size. I don't have to worry about trying to measure them and make sure it's the same. So I've got my 2 choices. I can choose if I want to, even them out a little bit, kind of like what we did with the choice boards. You can use the arrange tools. I just kind of eyeballed it for this one. Once you have the box, you can start to build your story, and you can type right in the box. So I'm going to just type in, visit the zoo, and this one I'm going to say visit the beach. All right, and maybe that's the 2 choices that you're giving your students, are these 2 things, and you can make them pretty by highlighting them, change the font to whatever you want, change the color of the font to anything you want, center it, make it larger. All right, so same thing with the zoo. I'm going to change it to the font that I had chosen. I don't remember which color I chose. I'm going to change this to like 36. All right, however I want to do it. And then I've got my 2 different ones here. And knowing me, I would go and make sure they're the same color and all those kind of things too. But for now, that's good enough. And then I want to color in the box, so I'm going to use the paint can. And I can use any of the first colors I see here, or I can go over and use one of the gradient colors. So maybe I want something like that. And then we'll do the same, go over to gradient, grab one of these. All right, so I've got my 2 choices. Now, once I have the 2 choices, you know that you can highlight font and click the link, put the link in. But I actually want to put the link on the shape and not on the words. That way, wherever you click within this button, it's going to take you out there. So I've highlighted the shape. Again, I'm going to hit the link, but instead of linking out to a website or a resource or something in my Google Drive or wherever else, you'll notice that I have this option to click slides in this presentation. It's always been there. You probably just ignored it. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to pick which slide I want it to go to. So right now I haven't, because I just started this, I don't actually have a slide that goes to the zoo. So I'm actually going to add another slide, and we're going to change the background to be a zoo. All right, so here we go. Are raccoons at the zoo? I would imagine there might be. Here's a cool house at the zoo. Let's say we're going to do this one. All right, and for my title, I'm just going to put zoo. I'm just going to leave it for now there, just so I know that that's the slide that I have is for the zoo. All right, so I've got this picture here. So I'm going to come back in here, highlight not the text, but the actual box, click link, and when I put in slide to the presentation, I now have the option to click it to slide 10 that I labeled the zoo. All right, so then when I put it in present mode, when I click it, it's going to take me right to that picture. All right, so I have to do the same with the beach. So I'm going to add in another one here. I'm kind of already in a beachy picture, but I'm going to pick another one. Beach. That looks gorgeous. Same thing. I'm going to title it this one so I don't lose it. All right, I'm just gonna move it up to the top. And then we're gonna just hide that. Okay, so I've got beach in there. So that one, when I go back to visit the beach, I moved this. So I need to put this one back at slide 10 so it stays there and have this one be beach for slide 11. I'm gonna highlight the image again, click link, slides in this presentation. And then I'm going to go down to, oh, it doesn't want me. Move this up so I can see it. Sometimes that the box gets too low in there. So it's just easier to move the box and then put it back. So the beach. So now if I slide this back down so it's even there. Okay, so now when I'm in present mode, if I click on visit the zoo, it takes me to the zoo. If I click on the beach, it takes me to the beach. Questions on that? We're good? That makes sense? Oh, lovely. Okay. All right. So when you do this, now that I have these two, once I'm in here, I know I have to make other choices. So let me go up to the zoo. I'm going to grab those boxes again. So I'm going to grab that box that I created, right? And then I'm going to hit Command or Control D and create the two boxes. I might even add in here another box at the top or even just a text box and tell my story. All right. Or I can even use that title right up here. Zoo, you have entered, you know, and then whatever the story is going to be. So you can put that in there as well. And then you have your two choices down below. You're going to add in the different objects. But let's say now that we're in the zoo, instead of having these shapes, you wanted animals to be here. So again, I can pick a picture just so I can show you how you can link the images. And I'm going to pick a tiger. But I want a transparent background one. So I'm going to put in transparent. I got this guy. All right. And then maybe I also want an elephant. And I'm going to drag him out. So now I've dragged out my two animals here. Maybe I want my elephant facing a different way. So I'm going to actually go to Format and Size and Rotation and flip him so he's facing the other way. All right. So maybe I want him facing in instead of out. Now I can also put in a text box. So maybe I want underneath it the word elephant, because maybe the kids are learning about different animals. And I want to make sure that's also linked there. And I'm going to do the same with the tiger. Grab a text box right underneath tiger. And I've got these two text boxes. So what I can do is if I want to keep the pictures there, but I want it to link, and I don't want to link the image and the word, and the kids aren't sure where to click and having to, you know, link twice, I can grab this shape tool again. Doesn't make a difference what shape, and put it over the whole area. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to that fill color and make it transparent. So the box is still there, and I can still link this out to whatever slide I want to send it to. So maybe I want to send it back to the first slide and hit apply, but it's still there. See how you can still see that box around it? And I can actually take that out too. So whenever they click anywhere in this area, whether they click on the word tiger or the tiger itself, it's going to take them on. So I clicked it to the first slide just to show you. So when I click it, it brought me back to that first slide. I heard a ding, so someone has a question. Yes. Yeah, I'm going to send you the presentation in your email. Absolutely. All right, we got 5 minutes left. What else do you want me to show you? Or can you group an image and a word? Yes. Yes. So I can choose this to be a group. So if I go in, let me close that one out. If I go in here and I go back to that tiger, all right, I'm going to move that blank one out that I put over it. I can click on the tiger, and then I'm going to hit Control or Command and click both of them, and that should group them. I don't know if I did. Come on. There we go. So I hit Shift Command, not both, and see how it labels both of them together. I click on Arrange and Group, and then those two will move together when I move them now. I just put that clear image or that clear box over it. That way the link is for anywhere on it. All right. Works a little bit better than grouping, where they still, when you do that, it sometimes can be a little wonky. But yeah, you absolutely can group the different images. All right. So I've created this slide, and then for the branching out, I would need to add another slide. We need a tiger background, so I'm going to put in tiger this time. then maybe one that he's kind of in the distant. No, I guess I'm not going to get that. Okay, so we'll just grab this one. And then from here, again, I would go back up and I would link this to the slide that I have the tiger. All right, so I'm going to take that one out because I actually put one in. And I know it's my very last slide. So link, slide and presentation, slide down to, come on, doesn't want me to go down. Can I get the little thing? Link, slide and presentation, come on, slide 11, there it is. All right, and then you hit apply. And then you can move it anywhere you need it to go. So that is how you do the choose your own adventures. Like I said, the best thing to do is to title your slides. Make sure that you plan out what you'd like to do. I'll go through and delete these out. I'm going to give you this though, but I am going to delete my little zoo animal stuff at the end there. But I'll share this out with you. So you have the resources that I gave you. There's a really good webinar on there. There's a really great blog post that you can read and kind of see how you can kind of set that up. You really should have the whole plan of the slides set up before linking. Yeah, before you worry about making it pretty and all that, like I showed you kind of the backwards way, like when you're, just grabbing the tiger, oh, I want the tiger to go on the next slide. That's much harder to do it that way. Set it up first, have your whole story written out on paper or in some sort of flow chart, then create your titles for each of your slides, then worry about linking those different slides. Yeah, much easier that way. Yep. All right. Happy to spend another half hour with you guys. We'll see you again soon, I hope. If you ever need me, I don't even think I put my information in the slide deck, so I'll add that here. Just shoot me an email. Have a great rest of your day.